A summer hike that turned deadly. But there are many questions floating around how it became that way. And with only photos on a camera for answers, what happened to Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon? On March 15, 2014, two Dutch students, Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon, arrived in Panama for a part vacation, part volunteering trip. They plan to spend time hiking and touring, while also teaching arts and crafts to local children and learning Spanish. 2 weeks after their arrival, Kris and Lisanne went to live with a local family in the town of Boquete, while volunteering with kids. On April 1st, Kris and Lisanne left their host family's home with the family's dog for a hike along the El Pianista Trail, and that was the last time the family saw either of them. That night, the dog returned home alone. The family searched around their house for Kris and Lisanne, but found no trace of either young woman. The next morning, with still no sign of Kris or Lisanne, the police were alerted. Both women's families flew to Panama with Dutch investigators to help search for their daughters.
Wat af is gegaan, geloven we echt niet.
A search was launched, and days turned into weeks. Their parents offered a $30,000 reward for any information leading to the women's whereabouts, but no one came forward. According to Facebook posts written by Kris and Lisanne, the two were planning to visit a local village before heading for the hiking trail. After 10 weeks of searching with no headway, investigators began leaning on the possibility that Kris and Lisanne got lost and fell off a cliff. Then, investigators got their first lead. A local woman turned in a backpack, which she reported finding near the riverbank. Inside the backpack were 2 pairs of sunglasses, cash, Lisanne's passport, and some clothes. They also found Lisanne's camera and both women's phones. Investigators discovered that over 4 days, Kris and Lisanne made 77 attempts to call emergency services, both to the Dutch number and 911. Only one call had gone through, but cut out after 2 seconds. Investigators also discovered that on April 6th, an incorrect PIN was entered several times in an attempt to unlock Kris's phone. The correct PIN was never entered after the unsuccessful attempts. The camera's contents drew a more disturbing image of Kris and Lisanne's trip. The first set of photos captured Kris and Lisanne at the beginning of their journey, posing for photos along the trail, all seemingly going well, with nothing to point to anything suspicious. It was the second set that was unexplainable. Nearly 90 photos that were taken in the dead of night on April 8th. The photos showed the women's belongings spread out on several rocks, plastic bags, a mirror, and the back of Kris's head, which seemed to be covered in blood. The photos were analyzed, and it was determined that the night photos were taken near a body of water.
Yep.
The discovery of the backpack led to new search areas for the investigation. Kris's shorts were found a few kilometers from where the backpack was discovered, and the trail went cold after that. 2 months later, a pelvis and boot with a foot inside were found around that same area. Soon after, at least 33 scattered bones were discovered along the same riverbank where the bag was found. DNA testing confirmed the bones belonged to Kris and Lisanne. The condition of the remains raised more questions than gave answers. For one, there were no marks of any kind on the bones. It was unclear why Lisanne's foot was broken off at her ankle. There were no signs of teeth, tools, or blood, although there were signs of inflammation and 3 breaks, suggesting she couldn't have walked far with those injuries. Kris's bones appeared to have been bleached. No official causes of death have been ruled for either Kris or Lisanne. Investigators looked into the possibility of Kris and Lisanne's deaths being linked to murders in that area, but came up empty. To this day, the disappearance and death of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon remains a disturbing mystery.